He is Alex Dunlap. I am the Podfather. This is Content Kings. We are here for our monthly show where we talk about fantasy football. We talk about trends in the industry. We talk about our respective businesses. And today, Alex, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the Chiefs. We're going to talk about Tampa Bay. We're going to talk about some of these teams that are regressing, some of these teams that we think will progress this year. What do you got going on Rosterwatch? Because training camp is coming up soon. Rosterwatch is known for going to these training camps, boots on the ground. So just talk to us about some of the products you're rolling out this summer, where you're going to be. Just give us the lay of the land.
Yeah, I mean, it's just excited to be rolling into the summertime, dude. This is where we like to do our best to dominate, and whenever the time comes to where we can start putting in the credentials for the various training camps, we'll be out there, Adam. Whoever lets us go. It's been as far as the products, with the best ball cheat sheet continues to get updated. I'm working on an update right now with some of this stuff. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about the San Francisco wide receivers, but I've kind of had some thoughts about those guys lately with Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings and kind of how I stacked them up. And there's a couple of these things I kind of need to get kind of cleaned up a little bit on that, but we're starting to be able to see early ADPs on managed season long leagues. And we typically shift focus from best ball to that a little bit earlier than most others do as far as the ultimate draft cheat sheet. So that'll be sometime in the middle of June where I'll just kind of get full into managed league mode. We're starting to see early drafts, and as usual, man, it's a little bit different as far as the structure, as far as, the way you're gonna have to build, as far as season long managed leagues versus best ball leagues. So that we'll be doing that. And also, the daily show, man, on the Rosterwatch YouTube channel, we're on every day, whether it's me and Cody or Cody and Trash Man or me and Trash Man or all three of us or whatever. So, yeah, man, it isn't 300 shows a day like you guys have on the PlayerProfiler network. But definitely between three dudes, we're cranking it out over there. I'll be interested to see once it comes around for the training camp credentials, whether any of these. I'm just wondering when every team is going to start letting companies in when they look at your website and see that you're fantasy football focused. Some of them still won't let you in. Like the Ravens still won't let you in, and that's been now over two different regimes, right? I think that might just be a Harbaugh thing. I'm not sure what it is. I'd love to go get out to one of those, but it's basically, man, most of these teams now are now allowing it. Even New England finally let us in last year, so
Ooh.
We'll see. Yes, we'll see how many we can finally get into. But I think the New England thing had to do with Belichick being gone.
We'll take some requests from the chat here. They want me to do my best, Alex Dunlap, so here it goes. This is Rosterwatch.
It's good.
Yeah. And they want us to talk Roschon Johnson. So I'm assuming in your cheat sheet is a must-have for serious fantasy gamers. You are rounds ahead of consensus on Roschon Johnson as we are.
Well, okay, so with Roschon Johnson, yeah, I'm high on Roschon Johnson. I like Roschon Johnson right now. As far as where his ADP is on Underdog, it's sitting in the 165 to 170 range.
Yeah, it's up big. It's up multiple rounds recently.
So but still, you're looking at the 13th, 14th round.
It's still too late.
And yeah, I think about it, and whenever you just can, we always talk about it, Matt. It's like the NFL draft and personnel moves and all this stuff. It's the one time that these teams can't lie to us. They all year, all these teams do is they get up and they lie and they lie and they lie and they lie. And you just know that this is a lie and it's not true. But there's been reports out of Chicago that Ben Johnson is really high on Roschon Johnson. The new offensive line coach is this dude, Dan Rochar, who he brought in with them. He was at Tulane for the last 2 years, but before that, he was with the New Orleans Saints. And so I went and I looked at some of the Tulane stuff from these last couple years because I was like, oh man, I was crossing my fingers saying, is this guy going to be somebody that maybe runs a little bit less zone, right? Because if you think about it, Matt, where was excuse me, where was Roshan Johnson best whenever he was in college? Well, you got to remember that Roshan came to college as a quarterback, and he
What?
transitioned. Yeah, he was a quarterback for his first season at Texas, and he transitioned to running back after there were some injuries, and he wanted to help the team and all this stuff like that. And so, one of the things that they really loved to do with Roshan that some fans kind of hated because it sometimes came at the expense of carries for Bijan Robinson was that they had this Roshan Wildcat package. I think they might have called it the Wild Horn. And it was a quarterback power run scheme that they would do in short yardage. And the reason why was because Roshan Johnson, if you just watch him as a runner, he's not a very good zone runner. He's a one cut and go. He likes getting sprung by a lead block, like a pulling guard or like a fullback lead or something like this, right? Just a lot more natural finding space like that. And so I'm like, man, is this new offensive line coach that Ben Johnson's bringing in? Like, is he going to be, is he going to integrate more blocking schemes and stuff? I wouldn't watch Tulane, and I was like, dude, that looks like they run a lot of like man, gap, power, counter, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, that looks like Roshan. And so I went and looked at the actual numbers. And if you just look at sort of Tulane as far as on PFF for their, it was true what my eyes were seeing, right? Elevated level of those types of plays. They still ran some zone and all the rest of it. But if you look at Roshan's success rate last year in zone, it's exactly what your eyes would have told you. It was just a 40% success rate in his zone concepts. Whereas if you look at running backs with qualifying running backs with over 100 carries last year, he was fourth best as far as his man gap zone success rate. It was at 66.67%. So Ben Johnson has said that there's going to be a lot of multiplicity as far as the way that they execute their run game and their run blocking. And I just think it's excellent for Roshan. I also think that they can't lie to you. All they did was they took Kyle Monangai. And look, I know that Kyle Monangai, there are some things to kind of like about him. I think that he's interesting in his own way, right? If you just look at him, he was actually tied for 13th in forced missed tackles last year. Oh, he was 13th. That was actually tied with Caleb Johnson last season.
Yeah,
he averaged 105.9 yards per game over the last two seasons. He fell in the draft because he had a terrible combine. But if you look at his 10-yard split, 1.54, which is, it's not great, but 68th percentile. 211
incredibly
pounds.
hard runner, man.
Yeah, but still, it's like we're talking about a guy that's going like RB23 in rookie drafts. Yeah, I think people see
he's an interesting guy. He's an interesting, hard-running guy.
He's coached by Eric.
He could be Jordan Mason in the long run. Great. That's great. He ain't no Roshan Johnson, bro.
Yeah, and he can't catch or pass protect like Roshan. And the thing
is, Roshan could catch 60 passes in the right situation.
And do you think that any of this? And there's also the system stuff, right? And I know that I've heard that some people say on X and stuff, too much is getting baked in as far as the Ben Johnson system and the improvement from the Bears. And I can understand that whenever you're looking at the wide receiver situation. I don't know if you always have big takes. I don't know if you have a take on Rome versus DJ Moore or all the rest of it, or how the tight ends are going to transfer. To me, it's like, I'm not going to say it and I'm not going to get the cliche alert, but it's like, I don't know where it's all going to, I don't know where that
passing the cliche that you don't want to say. I'll say it because you won't say it because you don't want to get the alert, but I am the producer of the show and I can alert myself if I want to alert myself, and I'm not going to alert myself because the way I'm saying it, I'm not saying it to say it. I'm saying it to reference it. I'm saying it as a third party referencing this is what it is. If I were to say too many mouths to feed, then I would as a description of an offense. But no, I'm just telling the audience the phrase that you weren't going to say because you know not to say it. And my bottom line is I fade the coach speak and I fade the coach hype, because one hyped coach this year is the first coach fired next year, like Mike McDaniel in Miami is the favorite to be the first coach fired, and he was the it guy 2 years ago. The reason why this is going to be such an efficient offense. My problem is I was hoping that most of these Bears would be values. And had they hired like a defensive-minded coach, they would be. Rome would be a value. DJ Moore would be a value. So many of these guys would be values. But because they hired Ben Johnson, now I get to draft a lot less of them in fantasy football. And that part of it is actually really frustrating.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, if you just look at where like Rome, because I want like I would like to. You would think that you'd be able to be like, dude, it's good process to go and after a sick prospect who is going into his second year with a new quarterback and you can get him so much later because he failed for everybody last year, right?
I expected to get a lot of him this year, but it's not happening because why? No, Ben Johnson.
He's going to like the end of the 5th round.
It's freaking stupid.
So all right. So the running backs is a different story though, right? Because if the whole
running backs where the value is,
if the whole offense is elevated and they're going to be in more scoring position, that's like one leads to the other. It's like the neck bone's connected to the thigh, not the whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like this is connected to this, connected to this.
The neck bone's connected to the thigh bone. Sure.
That'd be a weird situation, wouldn't it?
Like an amoeba situation. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're at the final. See what this is what the coach worshipers, what they do is they will dig and dig and dig and dig and dig. And the worship just has no bottom. Like, so now finally they're digging up all like the backups, like the handcuff running back. Now he's getting steamed up because coach, but they can't. The thing is, the beauty is Roschon is starting at such a low point. They can't steam him up far enough because if they do go to more of a gap blocking scheme, I mean, it is on. So if you look at Roschon's profile, let's look at Roschon's profile. What kind of profile is Roschon Johnson? He's a guy that lacks burst, but he has an above average speed score, and we know that he has good agility. But the bottom line is when you look at like a Shanahan style running back, most Shanahan style running backs, they're going to have good burst scores, even if they don't have good 40 times. Like, take Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon is the best example of this, where it runs a 4.66, but he has an 82nd percentile burst score. What does burst score means? That means that a guy can go from 0 to 60 faster than the average running back if you have an 82nd percentile burst score. So if you're running an outside zone scheme, you want to put your foot in the ground, get outside, put your foot in the ground, and then burst upfield through that hole as it's opening with great timing. So the burst score is an indicator that this player will be successful in the zone blocking scheme, whereas the low burst score is an indicator that this player is probably going to struggle. So you have like a Le'Veon Bell, you have a Roschon Johnson. These types of running backs are going to perform better in the gap blocking scheme.
Yeah, it will, and the thing about Roschon is just we've just seen it. It's just your eyeballs see it, and the numbers tell you it, and it's just the way he's played. And the other thing I'll think of, Matt, is like, and I'm using underdog ADP right now, but if you just look at the ADPs, so we said Roschon's going 167.5, so exactly where we said 165 to 170. That's that is semi sort of trailing ADP, and he has moved up a little bit, but it isn't like anything's happened in these post NFL draft streets that is anything besides people beginning to realize it. It's not like there's been somebody got hurt or do you know what I mean? Or someone got traded away. So the trailing ADP doesn't come with as big it's not as much noise as it would be for somebody else who had just something super major happen. So let's just say, let's go to 150. Stop me when you hear a guy. Can we both agree that Roschon Johnson, even though it's probably not the most likely scenario, but can we both agree that Roschon Johnson could end up being the RB1, the fantasy RB1 on his football team this season?
Yes. Yes. In fact, I think there's a much higher likelihood than anyone's ready to realize, because
And I don't mean due to
We've already
injury. I
come to
don't mean
Jesus on DeAndre Swift. Finally, the steam has leaked out of the DeAndre Swift kettle. It's gone. Like every year, there was this unjustified steam, like, oh, his touchdown, red zone efficiency. There was always some reason why we need to get behind DeAndre Swift. And then finally last year, that was it. That was the end, right? The final disappointment, and everyone's moved on. It's easy to move on. Once a guy disappoints for consecutive years, doesn't really have efficiency metrics you can point to get excited about, and you know that he doesn't like, he's not a football player. He doesn't like the sport of football. His coaches come out team after team and say that this guy is not in the weight room. This guy is not fully committed. This guy does not have the disposition that a Roschon has, a team captain has, a true passionate football player has. Well, those guys are not going to be in the league that long, and those guys end up getting kicked around the league. 1-2 year deal here, 1-2 year deal there. DeAndre Swift's on his third team already. It's no surprise at all. This guy sustains a couple injuries, or this guy suddenly has a fumbling problem. He suddenly has some kind of pass blocking. There's something that could allow just a toehold for Roschon Johnson to get a little bit more work, and then a little bit more work, and then a little bit more work, and then a little bit more. It doesn't have to be an injury. It could absolutely be by week 8, DeAndre Swift is just disinterested, and they've had enough.
And he's having to fight off Travis Homer and a rookie like Kyle Monungai. And Eric Bieniemy is your running backs coach. I mean, it becomes pretty interesting. So let's just go after 150. You tell me, and this is without injury, as you just said, where you can tell yourself that story without injury. This guy.
Okay, let's just we don't like to even cite the statistic very often, but just looking at yards per carry, it's gone from 5.5 to 4.6 to 3.8.
I mean, we don't like to look at it.
His fantasy output has flatlined in 3 years at 12.5 fantasy points per game.
You can kind of just also tell when you watch him.
Bro. Yes, you can tell. Like I said, his disposition is he's not a player that really gives a shit. When you watched the training camp, when you watched Hard Knocks with the Lions, he looked like the ultimate beta player out there. And you're like, okay, this is unfair. You don't want to be the body language doctor. This is not what we do here. Just like I fade coach speak. I'm not here to be, buying and selling players in fantasy football based on how they hang their shoulders in practice. But when one team moves on from him and the next team moves on from him, and then they finally find a buyer like in free agency with the Bears, and everyone's like, oh, the Bears overpaid. We're not sure who they were bidding against, but no one else was going to offer DeAndre Swift that kind of contract.
And so early in free agency.
It was crazy.
Okay, so tell me, can Tyler Algier take over his backfield without an injury?
No. Where is he going?
152. Can Austin Eckler take over his backfield without an injury?
No.
Can Braylon Allen? Because he's going ahead of Roschon.
Can Braylon Allen? Man,
yep.
I want to say no to Braylon Allen, but based on what I saw last year, I saw some weird shit with the Braylon Allen versus Breece Hall usage, but I'm still going to say no.
Okay. Can Rico Dowdle take over for Chuba?
No.
Can Jalen Wright take over?
Absolutely not.
What about Will Shipley or Justice Hill?
Did you say Will Shipley?
Yes.
You said Justice Hill?
Yes, they're going within 10 picks of him. They're going with it's just
this is a different class of player. This is what I'm saying. He needs to go many rounds earlier, even from here, for it to even be logical. He's also a better football player than everyone you mentioned too.
I totally agree, man. But dude, that's where he's going right now. And if you just look cross positionally, this is never a place where I'm going to be taking these wide receivers that are going around the same time as him, like Xavier Legette and Romeo Dobbs. Jalen McMillan is going 20 spots ahead of Jalen McMillan, who just got completely cucked by Emeka Egbuka. Now we are getting word now that it looks like So they're starting to act a little bit now like Chris Godwin might miss the start of the season, which is another thing I need to write down.
Wait, what happened? Why?
I was just reading on Pewter Report on at the start of OTAs when they were saying about one of the reasons why it's just good that Emeka Egbuka's come in and, did you hear what Jalen McMillan said about Emeka Egbuka?
Well, he said he thinks Emeka Egbuka is really good.
He said that I forgot. It was something like, man, this he's only been here for like 3 days and he's already learned half the damn playbook. Almost like he was tilted by it, And Matt, we talked about.
I would be too, wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
You broke out. Your team already has 2 established wide receiver starters. You're the third guy. You were the most productive of the late round picks last year at the wide receiver position, and then they go out and use a first rounder on a wide receiver. I'd be tilted too.
Yeah.
You seen his ADP? The fact that he's going, 50 picks before Roschon Johnson? That is the illogical ADP dichotomy of the offseason in fantasy football, is the Jalen McMillan versus Roschon Johnson ADP. McMillan's is the most inflated for no reason, and Roschon's is the most deflated for no reason.
Yeah, but anyway, the thing about Godwin was just something on Pewter Report they were asking about Egbuka, and it's what we talked about at the Draft House when we were doing our draft coverage there. We said it's like Egbuka. It was so disappointing that he went to Tampa Bay, because we were like, he's the one guy, if he would have gone to a spot where there was a ready-made, like, let's say that he would have gone to Dallas, right? And they would have never gotten Pickens if that would have happened. But he would have just gone into a wide receiver 2 role. You would have known, like, out of all the wide receivers in this class, it was like he was the one, even if he wasn't the best prospect of them all, he was the most pro-ready, and he was going to come in and be good right off the bat. Right? That's what you knew about Emeka Egbuka.
Right. Those are the high floor.
Yeah. And so what they were saying on Pewter Report is they're saying it's good that he's come in and he's looked real good and that he's taken to the playbook so much, because that gives them some leeway, at least for week 1, and I think versus Atlanta, and possibly for a few weeks after that if Chris Godwin's not ready. And that's and I really think that those guys at Pewter Report are actually really, really good.
Oh yeah,
I see them at
Pewter
all the
Report's
events.
one of the best, like, sort of local news beat media sites out there.
And so that's the first little drizzle I've heard onto the conversation about it. And what they also said is that, this could be a year like the 21 to 22 season, whenever was that 21 to 22 when he's coming back from ACL? I think it was. You can probably look on Player Profiler at the injury tab.
Godwin's ADP is another one. So I think it's important that we have this discussion about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, that is where this is headed. Where this is headed is just a general discussion about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we're going to get into it after this. Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February, and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it! The Tampa Bay Buccaneers make no sense. We talked about the most illogical ADPs. Most of them are Buccaneers.
I love that picture of Bradley with the thing behind him. He looks like a local news anchor for some guy. I don't know why. I just saw that. I'm like, that's a hilarious picture of Bradley with the little player profile logo behind him. He looks like he's a meteorologist.
I know that we love Chris Godwin, right? He's one of my favorite players in that he's the type of receiver that I love. He's explosive. He's got the perfect size. He's got the perfect route inventory. He's one of these slot flankers who can do it all, and he's delivered, and he did it, without being a first-round pick. I don't know. I also owe him big time because I called it that he was going to have a better season than Mike Evans that year, and then he did, and then that really helped to be a real tailwind for Player Profiler. And when you go to the Chris Godwin profile on Player Profiler, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's definitely going to be good, right? It's like this is why Player Profiler exists, to find players like Chris Godwin. But at this point in his career, it's time to get real, right? It's time to get real that he's 29 years old going on 30. And the injury history is not good. When we flip down to the injury history.
2021 to 2022, where he had the knee. Was it the knee in 2021? Does it go back that far, or is it just last season?
Yeah. He had the knee surgery in, I think, December 2021. Okay.
Yeah.
So he tore the knee up December 2021, and then even into 2022, he was having issues. He had the strained hamstring, which was a direct result of pushing himself post ACL, and then he continued to have knee soreness in 2023. Missed a bunch of games with that. And then he had the gruesome dislocated ankle where his leg went in the wrong direction last year. And that was part of the reason why they drafted Egbuka. And yet you see him going way too early in best ball right now. It's crazy. It makes no sense. Think about Fast Draft, right? On Fast Draft, what are you looking for? You're looking for wide receivers that can smash expectations. You need if you're going to draft a wide receiver in the Flex 4 game on Fast Draft, that wide receiver needs to smash expectations. And there really isn't a path for Chris Godwin to smash expectations, or Mike Evans. Mike Evans is going at pick 32. That's too early. And whenever I see Godwin going in the sixth round, I'm like, I think there's a lot of receivers and running backs I would rather have than Chris Godwin. Receivers with higher ceilings, receivers that aren't coming back from a gruesome injury, receivers on teams with a more consolidated target distribution, receivers on teams with a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. I could go on and on and on and on. Receivers on a team where the schedule is a little more challenging late in the year or throughout the year so that there can be more shootouts. There's a real problem with these Buccaneers. I don't understand how you could possibly justify these ADPs, from Bucky Irving to Chris Godwin to Mike Evans to Jalen McMillan. It's the head-scratching team of all in this format. I don't understand it.
Where can I find that? Is that on desktop? I can look at the Fast Draft ADPs?
That's right. Yeah, if you go to fastdraft.app or draftfaster.com, either one, draftfaster.com, click on Contest ADP, and you can see the ADPs for these players.
Okay.
And Godwin is a little more egregious than Mike Evans, but Mike Evans is really egregious.
What is his ADP on
Mike Evans adjacent to Garrett Wilson makes no sense. Garrett Wilson he has this passing game to himself in New York, whereas Mike Evans, again, he's one of a bunch of guys, and he eked his way. He crawled over broken glass to get to 1,000 yards last year. Now he's going to be 32 years old, and he's on that Brandon Marshall, Randy Moss career path as one of these big explosive outside playmakers. These guys always and without fail crater in their early 30s, and he already showed signs of that. His ADOT was barely inside the top 40 last year after being like top 5 every year for so long. We've already seen the signs that he is in decline, and yet this ADP is the same it's been, for consecutive years back through time. It's like nobody's willing to have the hard conversation rate. Maybe they will. Maybe by August it'll happen, but yet this year, the hard conversation about Mike Evans is not being had.
Well, you're right. What is his ADP on Fast Draft?
His ADP on Fast Draft is player 31. He goes a couple picks after Garrett Wilson. He's going before Terry McLaurin. He's going before DJ Moore. He's going before Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams.
Okay. All right. So I was thinking, gosh, I might be too high on him. What it is I'm too low on Garrett Wilson. I need to move him up.
Most people are too low on Garrett Wilson.
He's one of these guys where Trash Man doesn't do a good job at much, but he's done a good job talking me into Garrett Wilson lately. He's saying, "What are you doing getting off of Garrett Wilson, dude? Like what are you doing getting off of Garrett Wilson from these hills right behind me, man? Like why am I getting off of Garrett Wilson when I know what kind of player he is?" And the reports coming out. Have you read the reports coming out of OTAs about this? Sure. About how, dude, if there's one thing, they just say Justin Fields, we're still looking at him, still trying to get it all figured out. But hey, if there's one thing we know, he's gonna throw the Dickens to the he's gonna just pepper Garrett Wilson.
How many years did they play together at Ohio State?
I think it was only one season.
But
still,
right?
But Garrett Wilson said in his interview, he said, we're going to pick up where we left off.
It's too easy, dude. Sometimes fantasy football doesn't need to be hard. These guys have baked in rapport, and that's all there is. You're afraid of Malachi Corley? What the hell are we talking about? They've actually shed tight end talent. They've shed wide receiver talent. What are you waiting for with Garrett Wilson? Do you not like 180 targets? You don't like 180 targets? Even if it's a low volume offense, he's going to get all the targets.
Yeah, but it's probably going to be low volume. If you look at if you just look at general standard projections for Justin Fields, I think that's what gets baked in for some people because he does not project well from a passing yard standpoint.
Oh, but somehow just because of one season, Baker Mayfield's suddenly going to be a top 5 prolific quarterback? What?
And they played together for 2 seasons. 2019 and 2020.
Okay, there you go. 2 seasons. Okay. That's the same number of seasons that Baker Mayfield's played with Mike Evans. What is the point? What is the value? I don't believe that there's really anything to be gained by drafting Mike Evans, and there's everything to be lost. I think if you're trying to find, and I had this conversation with Andrew Cooper, it was a really good conversation, where I came into it thinking, man, I think I could justify a full fade not taking any shares of a Bucky Irving in best ball. And Andrew Cooper talked me out of it. He said, well, look at that schedule, right? That end of season schedule, or the full season, if you really want to just zoom out and look at the whole season. They play the Jets, and they play Seattle, and they play New Orleans twice, and they play Carolina and Miami. These are games that this team is going to be up double digits, and they're going to be running Bucky Irving. You can't afford to fade Bucky Irving with that schedule. And I was like, fair. That's fair. I get it. Okay, fine. I don't love the situation. I'll probably be at like 4%, but you can't fade him. I mean, you can't fully fade him. Mike Evans, on the other hand, I believe that if you're going down the ADP board, he's the first one, right? He's the first one. Like if we're on the Flex 4 ADP board on Fast Draft, and we're going down the board, and I'm looking at Bucky Irving and T. Higgins and Josh Jacobs and Breece Hall and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Chase Brown and Garrett Wilson and James Cook, the first guy I would get to, and I'm be fine with 0% in my portfolio, it would be Mike Evans, because the upside isn't there either. He's so dusty, and the ADOT is no longer there. The thing that you liked about Mike Evans was the air yards. The air yards crashed. He lost like 700 air yards from 2023 to 2024. So if you're not getting the air yards, you're not getting the upside. So if the upside isn't there, well, then you have to start worrying about the downside. Is there a lot of downside? Hell yeah, there's a lot of downside. The downside is that he's really dusty and he can't separate at all, even though the target separation was near the bottom of the league last year. The yards after the catch per target near bottom of the league last year. So he's already showing that he has no burst after the catch, that he can't separate. These are all things that we've already seen in the advanced metrics on PlayerProfiler.com. Now he's yet another year older, and we see even fewer instances of these big hulking outside clashers having success at age 32. It just doesn't happen, man. It doesn't happen. Randy Moss on the Titans, it doesn't happen, bro. Andre Johnson on the Colts doesn't happen. Brandon Marshall, wherever he ended up at age 32, is not a thing.
It was the Jets or something. I forgot what it was. I don't know, man. I guess I'm kind of with you on Evans. I hate it.
They're going to put him on their back. All the receivers going to get together, and they are all going to collectively drag him across the finish line and get him to 1,001 yards.
I have him at 39 overall, and that's still too high, isn't it?
Yes. They are going to I'm telling you, that team will, because of their schedule, one thing they will do is they will make sure they get him to 1,000 yards. But it is not going to be easy. But he has so many 1,000-yard seasons in a row. It's a big accomplishment for him. He's going to want to get there. It'll be a big deal, and they'll celebrate it if he can stay healthy. But we're talking. So what does that mean? That means that he's going to get 1,001 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Well, if he
that's
gets
not a stat line that could hurt you. That's not a stat line that can burn you. That could cost you money if you fade it.
No, but if you just I don't have the projection stuff pulled up right now. But I believe if you look at his traditional touchdown rate, it's gonna, if he gets to 1,000 yards, he's gonna have more touchdowns than 6. But
okay,
I mean, I get what you're saying. I think it'd be more. Just off the top of my head, I think it'd be more like 8.
I'm just saying the average number of touchdowns for a receiver, who gets 1,000 yards is about 5.5, 6.
Up to 6.35 or something.
Right. He played, by the way, in 2022, he played 15 games. Okay. And he had 77 catches and 1,124 receiving yards, 14.6 yards per reception. And it was down to 13.6 last year. So it's gone from 15.9 to 14.6 to 13.6. And then, but in 2022, you go back 2 years, he had 6 touchdowns that year. He had
Fair
a
enough.
year in 2017, he had 5 touchdowns. And in 2018 and 2019, he had 8 touchdowns. So, okay. So we're talking about 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's exactly what he did. Actually, he had exactly 1,001 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2017. That was the year, and he was the wide receiver 19 in fantasy points per game. And you could have fully faded him in best ball, and it would not have impacted you in any way whatsoever.
So structurally, what does that mean for you? Because here's my question: the wide receivers going around him, and let's just talk even cross positionally too when we talk about running backs. Because when you get into that sort of end of third round, you have Kyron Williams, you have Breece Hall, you have James Cook as options, and then whereas at the wide receiver spot, you're basically like you're kissing like Devontae Adams. They're like kissing cousins, man. I want Devontae Adams so much more, and he's only going 2 picks before. But then you have Xavier Worthy, and we're talking about the Chiefs. I have some concerns there. Just fourth.
We'll
round
talk about the
Xavier
Chiefs
Worthy.
in a little bit. We'll talk about the Chiefs in a little bit. So
McMillan,
your first
DJ
priority is
Moore.
Garrett Wilson. If we're just talking a wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, and then Rashee Rice is a smash.
But
And
Garrett Wilson goes at 25. I'm talking about more in that kind of 31 to 40 range.
I'm just saying from 25 to 40 in that zone starts with Garrett Wilson for sure. I love Rashee Rice, and I love Terry McLaurin, and I love Devontae Adams. I love all those guys. Like I said, Mike Evans does not belong in that tier because he's already in decline, and there's so much target competition, and Igbuka looks like the real deal.
Dude, Kenneth Walker's going so much earlier on Fast Draft than he is on Underdog.
Well, that's right. Well, the Underdog and Fast Draft are very different, very, very different formats.
Yeah, for sure.
On
That's just
Underdog, you start 3 receivers and you only start 2 running backs. And because it's best ball where guys are entering your lineup every week based on spike weeks, and you have a deep bench, it incentivizes you to have a deep bench of receivers, which further increases demand. So that format incentivizes the best players to have a deep bench of receivers, plus you have to start an extra receiver. So the demand for receivers is so much more. So the receivers get steamed up across the board on Underdog, even though it's half PPR. Fast Draft is full
yeah,
PPR, but
yeah,
historically, because there's no position restrictions, you're just better off getting the guys that scored the peak fantasy points, the absolute most fantasy points. And year in, year out, that's typically going to be a running back. More often than not, the top fantasy scorers, just in raw points, because they are active in both the passing game and the running game, are going to be running backs. So the Kenneth Walkers are going to go ahead of a Devontae Adams on Fast Draft because Kenneth Walker was top 5 in a lot of receiving categories last year. Running back catch rate, running back target share. Kenneth Walker, top 5. He transformed himself into a true workhorse back, an all-purpose back. And if they're going to be run heavy, a lot of 12 personnel. Now they've added another tight end in the draft, Arroyo, with the possible final years-long emergence of Noah Fant in Seattle. It's going to be the Kenneth Walker show, right? It's going to be consolidated targets to Kupp and JSN, and then the running game with Kenneth Walker. It'll be those 3 guys getting most of the opportunities and scoring most of the fantasy points. So this is where you can see Kenneth Walker really thriving. He's going too late on Underdog. He's going probably right where he should go on Fast Draft.
yeah. Yeah. On Underdog, he's going at 58.2. He's going at the basically the end of the 5th round, and he's one. I think that's he's going in this range where a lot. I really like it. It's him and it's Kamara, and that's where Travion Henderson is falling. RJ Harvey's going just a little bit before those guys. It's like, dude, 0 RB doesn't. I mean, James Conner goes at 66.8. 0 or the running back dead zone. It's like I hope people think that that's still a thing. I'd love to draft my running backs through that area. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was the case last year.
Well, no, not really. Last year, last year,
Kenneth Walker went the same exact ADP.
Well, but Kenneth Walker's in a different situation now. Different offensive coordinator. He's like, I feel like his ADP this year is a little bit down because people think Kenneth Walker's going to get hurt every single year. To some degree, I can understand why.
Well, because he strained his oblique every year. He strains that oblique, but the oblique is not like a chronic injury that you have.
Yeah, but
it's not an ankle injury. An oblique and an ankle are very different things. They're treating it like this chronic ankle injury. It's not like that.
Anytime you get an oblique, it puts you at risk of compensatory stuff with your hamstring.
Right, I know, but that was last year. He fully recovered.
I get it.
He's fully recovered. The probability that he strains his oblique again. I mean, Matthew Stafford shattered his collarbone 2 consecutive years, and then he never broke it again. This is what we could be looking at. Like we could be looking back in 5 years, going, "Hey, remember when everyone thought that Kenneth Walker's oblique was just weak, and you couldn't draft Kenneth Walker because of his oblique?" And it's like, even though his situation from 2024 to 2025 got so much better based on the offense that they projected to run, and yet the ADP didn't move because of this oblique concern. It's like, It's just silliness.
Yeah, but I'm not as excited about him at the 3-4 turn as I am at the 5-6 turn. But that's what, like, I guarantee you on Fast Draft, that's what it's going to be in home leagues. That's what's going to be in home leagues. You're going to have to spend a 4th round pick on Kenneth Walker in home leagues.
You have historically wanted to try to find the running back that's going to find himself getting huge volume in both the running game and the passing game with breakaway talent, right? With explosiveness. That's the recipe for a great 3rd or 4th round pick on Fast Draft. And that's what Kenneth Walker is. So I think he's an equally good value on Fast Draft where he's going and Underdog where he's going. You
Yeah,
want Kenneth Walker, man. He became a receiver. Whatever he did in the offseason shows me just how dedicated he is to the sport. He's very much the anti-DeAndre Swift. If there were two polar opposite running backs in the NFL, it would be DeAndre Swift came into the league with all this receiving talent, and all he's done is regress. Kenneth Walker came into the league with no talent as a receiver, and all he's done is progress and become better and better and better every year. He has like passion for the sport that's hard to even replicate, right? You know, he's just so almost too intense. He's almost like the George Pickens of running backs, whereas you have DeAndre Swift on the opposite end of that spectrum, where it's like, how can you not be more excited to be a professional football player?
And then you also add in the fact that Alvin Kamara last year, and I just bring up Alvin Kamara because isn't their new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak? I should have checked that before I brought this up. It's Clint Kubiak, right? It's got to be. Yeah. So let me make sure that's the case.
Hey, let me ask. Ricky One it brought up a common gambler's fallacy. He said that I faded Evans almost every year for 11 seasons, and his weakest finish was wide receiver 22. So that's going to be the excuse to just always bet on him because it always comes through, right? So, well, I mean, the reason that's a fallacy is because by that logic, then he'll never have a cliff year. By that logic, he'll never bust. He'll be great forever. He'll be producing, wide receiver 15 numbers at age 45.
Gambler's fallacy. I thought the gambler's fallacy is when you walk up to the roulette wheel and it's hit black 15 times in a row, and you're like, it can't hit it again. I got to bet red. But it's really just its own independent event. Isn't that the gambler's fallacy?
Well, it's the same. It's the exact same fallacy. Some people see it as a glass half full. Some people see it as a glass half empty. Some people see the roulette wheel hit red 3 times in a row. They think it's going to hit red again.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Some people see it hit 3 times in a row and think, it's got to be black.
You're saying so with the comment.
It's a gambler's fallacy nonetheless.
He's saying, but he's just like the optimistic gambler.
Yeah, he's the optimistic. He's the guy that's like, it's probably going to hit, again. Anyway, it's more of a confirmation bias fallacy where it's like every year the same thing happens, so I think that it's going to happen again just because it happened 2 years in a row. And well, that's just not how football works.
Right. Because you think of the season as its independent event, right? But what I was saying about Kubiak is that, if you just look at for what you meant for the receiving, now Alvin Kamara last year didn't have his like 100 plus target kind of season, but he did have 80. I mean, he had 89 targets last season, and that's more than he'd had dating back to that was the most targets since 2020, and he didn't even play all the games last year. So even when you hear about this is going to be a team that Mike Macdonald is saying we're going to get back to
Michael McDonald.
What?
Michael McDonald?
For the Seahawks coach, what did I call him?
No, I know. I'm just it's just funny. Michael,
okay.
Michael McDonald?
No, who is he?
He's the greatest yacht rocker of all time.
What's his band?
He was in the Doobie Brothers.
Oh,
he was in Steely Dan.
Oh, God, well, goodness.
He's a keyboard player, and he has one of the great sort of soulful sounding voices in all of music. He's the most popular sort of a background vocalist in the history of music.
So you don't think that he would be a gruff kind of defensive-minded head coach if he were in the NFL, would he?
Michael McDonald?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's pull up a picture of him. And let's see, like, would Michael McDonald, let's see, would he be a good, what kind of coach would he be? That's a very good question. So let's pull up a photo of him. Why is this not rendering? Here we go. Oh, perfect. This is wonderful. This is Michael McDonald. This is him behind the keyboard.
Oh no, dude, that guy's gonna run an air raid kind of set. No, he's
Doesn't
not.
he
That's
just
an
he looks like
that is an
he's the coach for
offensive.
Texas Tech and they run at
Yes,
all times 5 wide receivers.
yeah, dude, like offensive linemen with 3 yard splits, just totally spreading out the field, still like trained under Hal Mummy, um, total air raid guy with like some kind of weird wing T principles built into the run game or something, too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he wouldn't be anything like the Mike McDonald that's in Seattle right now. That wants to be just that guy has free flowing hair. He wants free flowing points. He wants to throw the ball all over the yard. That's not what Mike McDonald wants, man. He wants to pound the ball. He wants to play tough defense. But I think even with that being the case, dude, if you give the ball enough times to Ken Walker, I know some of these statistics show that he is prone to the negative plays, right? There are the negative plays for him. It is what it is. But he's also if you give him like if you get a season where he's like 17 attempts a game or something like that, every single game he's going to have like a one breakaway run. It's just he's an awesome breakaway runner. And
Yes.
here's the other thing. Is that if we've seen that Kubi now, whether it was just because he had Kamara or what it was, but it's not like he's shown that we just won't integrate the passing game to our running backs. He's a Kubiak.
He had a top 5 target share among NFL running backs last year.
So
Listen,
I mean,
he's also a
yeah.
very fun player. Okay, this is not a player you're going to want to fade this year. You're going to feel very good about drafting him, and you're going to feel so good about having him on your team week in, week out this year. And you can thank this oblique injury, the fact that he just happened to randomly have an oblique injury 2 different seasons, and now it's viewed as like his Achilles heel. That's a complete fallacy.
Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, or Quinshawn Judkins for you
In
season?
Seasonal leagues?
Yeah, in
this
seasonal.
year?
Yep.
Kenneth Walker by a lot.
So do you like Kenneth Walker more than guys like Joe Mixon and Chuba Hubbard?
Yes.
Do you like him more than James Cook?
Yes.
Do you like him more than Kyron and Chase Brown and stuff? No.
Ooh.
Okay.
I think
So-
that I would rather have Chase Brown.
So
Chase Brown can
basically,
really hurt you, man. Chase Brown could
Yeah.
really hurt you because
Yeah, I think
the amount of fantasy points available in Cincinnati is so enormous that helps to outweigh just the spectacular sort of qualities of Kenneth Walker. Ultimately, the Seattle offense is not going to have a ton of points. It's not going to be a prolific offense. It's just going to be very Kenneth Walker centric. Whereas Cincinnati's not going to be Chase Brown centric. It's the reason I love Taj Brooks. But the number of touchdowns scored in Cincinnati is not to be trifled with.
So, yeah, no, I totally agree. I could tell you I mean, we've had our talk. We talked to the draft house about my Chase Brown take, so you already know it. But I think he's a guy.
Actually, it's interesting. The backfield in Seattle, I think, is similar to the backfield with the Rams in that they have their established alpha in Kyron Williams and Kenneth Walker, but they also have quality running backs behind them. There's not much difference between Blake Corum and Zach Charbonnet. In fact, Corum outplayed him in Michigan. That's why he had to transfer. So Charbonnet had to transfer from Michigan because of Corum.
But that was before Corum tore his ACL. But right.
Okay,
I'm
so
not sure
now
Corum's
they're
bad.
essentially the same guy, and now there's also you have Jarquez Hunter and Damian Martinez as 2 of the better RB3s in the NFL. So these backfields are loaded. I think that it's very close between Walker and Kyron Williams. Rams a little bit better offense, but Walker's a better player. Walker's more explosive. I think I'd lean Walker, but it's very close.
Fair enough. So basically, I think what Matt Kelly's saying is that once you get down to into that area where and it makes sense because this could be different and seasonal, but you're going to be making decisions between if you push Mike Evans down below the Garrett Wilsons and the DJ Moores and the Devontae Adams as you should, right? And you get down to then you start thinking about Mike Evans, guys like Ted McMillan. I think Travis Hunter belongs in that category, right? You're going to have Xavier Worthy going around here. Jameson Williams, who we can talk about, is going in like fourth round. Jameson Williams. It's like if you're all those guys, I can, I like
fourth round Jameson Williams. We're going to look back at that and just shake our heads.
At 46.5, fourth round Jameson Williams.
Yeah, that's going to be. We're going to look back and be like, what?
What? Like you think it's just too early?
Yeah, he hasn't done anything. Early.
Well, he did have a 1,000-yard season last year, but it's true. I mean that happened. It was only 1,001 yards, but he did get to 1,000.
Come on, man.
And his new
top 50 player.
His new offensive coordinator. His last name's Morton. He was Bo Nix's passing game coordinator last year, so he's not. It wasn't like he was with Ben Johnson. But he was with Ben Johnson in 2021, 2022, 2023. He was with Denver. Now he's back without Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator in Detroit. And he was saying that all his OTA stuff is he's like, Jameson Williams is going to have a breakout season. He's going to have a big, big year.
Sure.
So, no, I'm the same way. I think
sure.
I just like.
I mean, I'll see it when I see it. That's one of those. What I'm going to see it when I see it, but I'm not going to project because I saw him play in college 5 years ago and he looked good. That's not happening. That's not how I play fantasy football. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. That's just not the way to do it. And the fact that on any format whatsoever, underdog or anywhere else, that Kenneth Walker goes after Jameson Williams, that's a broken ADP. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. And I also want to set the record straight. Brian Byrne is saying that Chase Brown hurt me because I was all in on Zach Moss last year. That's false. I loved both players last year. In fact, I talked actively about how Chase Brown looked so bad at the Senior Bowl, but you had to draft him anyway because the Bengals offense was going to be so prolific. Zach Moss is a slug. He's never been an impressive player. I have a t-shirt made of Zach Moss with a crying Jordan face, and yet you had to draft him anyway because of the Bengals offense. This is the same reason why you're drafting Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson's not an impressive athlete. He's nothing like Kenneth Walker in terms of a big playmaker. But you have to draft Brian Robinson on the chance that he has 18 touchdowns in the context of that offense. In some there are situations that play themselves out where you have to just let go of the fact that running back X isn't the most talented guy and you don't respect him as a big-time playmaker in the league and draft him anyway. That was the case for Zach Moss last year. It's the same case for Brian Robinson, but it's also, if you see a team with a lot of touchdown equity, no matter what your preconceived notions are about that player, whether it be Zach Moss and Chase Brown last year or Chase Brown and Taj Brooks this year, or Brian Robinson and any other running back, Austin Eckler or Krosky Merritt, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt in Washington, you just have to get these guys on your team because there's so much touchdown equity, and you just have to be humble about your talent evaluations. And I'm talking to you because I know you don't like Brian Robinson.
No, it's just like I just look at Brian Robinson. I look at players that last year that had an over 50% stuff rate, which is just, and that's a stat from, I think it's from Fantasy Points, but it's where it's less than 4 yards on first down and less than 3 yards on all others. They're literally all dust balls that have all lost their job or they've been drafted over. It's guys like Brian Robinson's on the list, Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne, Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, Gus Edwards, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb, Cam Akers, Jalen Wright, Raheem Mostert, Kenneth Gainwell, and the worst was Zamir White. And whenever you just think about, and so like Brian Robinson is in that bucket as far as guys who cannot create on their own. This is an offensive line. I know that they drafted Josh Connerly, but that offensive line has not been a good run blocking offensive line. If you look at,
I don't care. Don't care.
But I'm talking. But if you want to talk about guys who could, if you talk about guys who can create on their own, just look at Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Look at him from 2023 in New Mexico. Per PFF, he was tied with Bucky Irving in yards per contact, yards after contact per attempt. He was top 25 in all of FBS. Seventh most design runs in all of CFB of over 15 yards. He was RB12 in rushes for first downs. He can create on his own. He was RB18 in PFF elusive rating. All of this out of 265 qualifiers.
On the Origins game, on Fast Draft, Origins all-rookie game. If you're not drafting Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, we've talked about this. In the 6th round, if Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is available, you have to draft him on Origins, on Fast Draft. You have to do it. It's an incredible edge. You should be drafting him in the 5th round, so you don't even have to worry about him in the 6th round.
If you look at Player Profiler, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, just for the burst score. These guys got to be able to create for this. They need something different out of their. They need something different out of their offense and out of their run game. 95th percentile burst score, I believe.
This is a player that would be excellent in a stretch zone running scheme.
Now go look at Brian Robinson's burst score.
This is a player that's better in a gap blocking scheme.
For people listening on the podcast, that thing just went from 96th to 14th.
That's right. Yes, your point is well made, and he could score 18 touchdowns.
And that's the one thing where it's like I could get behind him more this year than I have in previous years because, dude, Jaden Daniels is the rising tide that lifts all boats.
I'm not sorry.
Is that going to give me a cliche alert?
Listen, I'm a big talent snob. I am. You have a lot of fantasy gamers that are talent agnostic, and they're just drafting based on the number of plays per game. And I'm not doing that. Okay? No, Kenneth Walker's ability to break tackles and run away from defenders and score touchdowns from the 50-yard line matters. But also, and it's like forever. I'll always and forever defend having some Zach Moss in your portfolio in 2024 because Chase Brown proved that was a good idea.
Isn't that kind of funny?
Yeah, it's like, fine. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. As long as you're not, there's lots of mistakes you can make on the board. There's a lot of bad players, a lot of Zamir Whites on bad teams people could be drafting. Yeah. And those are wasted picks. And you stack those up, and that's how you lose money in fantasy football. But that's a good mistake, Brian Robinson, and he somehow gets relegated by Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, which would be amazing if that happens. Oh, God, I hope that happens. It would be incredible for my Dynasty League teams. It'd be incredible for a bunch of people I know that are way overweight on JCM on Fast Draft. I mean, it just proves the point that it was a good idea to just be overweight on that backfield. There's plenty of backfields to avoid. And you mentioned Judkins, like the Cleveland backfield. Get out of here. What are you trying to gain investing in the Cleveland backfield?
Well, I love Quinshon Judkins, and I think that quarterback situation is just so weird and in flux. I don't know if you have any thoughts about the reports coming out of training camp about the 4 quarterback rotation or how it's going to shake out. But are you
listening to yourself? Are you listening to the words that are coming out of your own mouth?
Well, listen to this.
It's going to be a 4 quarterback rotation. They're going to have one quarterback in the first quarter, another quarterback in the second quarter, another quarterback in the third quarter, another quarterback in the fourth quarter. That's how ridiculous this is getting. The idea that Joe Flacco is somehow going to be this prolific quarterback this year is a complete fiction. And then who's it going to be?
Dude, Jamari Thrash is the wide receiver 3 for that team. They're not gonna. They're gonna run it with Quinshawn Judkins and Dylan Sampson, and I get a little bit worried that
Yeah.
maybe Dylan Sampson's the guy I should be interested in more,
If
just because
you
he's
want
so
to have any
cheap.
exposure to that team, the way to do it would be their least expensive pieces. It'd be a Sampson. It would be, uh, their wide receiver too. Like that's
I
the
don't
way
want
to
any exposure
go.
to that. I don't want any exposure to the passing game. I want exposure to the running game where they just drafted two of my favorite running backs in the whole draft. Two sick players. Dylan Sampson led the SEC in rushing last year. He's a sick man, dude.
Yeah, but they're going to be playing
He's
from
a
behind a
problem.
lot. They're going to be playing from behind a lot, and Jerry Jeudy is not this reliable alpha receiver. So I think that putting your chips down on Cedric Tillman late, going at like pick 170, is the way to do it. Like if you're doing a proper best ball draft, if you want exposure to a team like Cleveland, then putting your chips on a David Njoku or a Cedric Tillman or a Dylan Sampson is the way to go. Spending up any kind of premium capital on a Judy or a Judkins is just wrong. Like it's the same exact principle we talked about, where you really can't go wrong betting on Bengals. You have to get as much Taj Brooks as possible, right?
No,
And
I
for
can't
that
argue with
reason,
that.
you simply cannot be drafting the premium assets on the worst offenses. It's the path to hell in fantasy football each and every year. You know this.
And unless their name is Malik Neighbors, and then I think it's fine.
Well, right. Okay. But that's
Yeah.
different. The one exception that you can always make to this rule is primary receivers. Primary receivers always get fed no matter who their quarterback is. Just look at the Tom Savage corollary, right? You know the Tom
What's
Savage
the Tom
corollary?
Savage? Well, I probably do, but I don't. I
So
can't think of it.
we had the perfect experiment where Watson played 8 games and Savage
Is this
played 8
about
games.
Hopkins? Okay.
And Hopkins had the exact same fantasy points per game with Hopkins and with Watson and with Savage. Why? Because he had a much less efficient 8 games with Savage because the target accuracy was not as good, but the target share went up. Because why? Because inferior quarterbacks will always lock into their number one receiver.
It's like Spencer Rattler this last year. He said, "Look, my job is to go out there and find number 12 whenever." And that was when Olave was healthy, right? And it's
That's
like
right.
it wasn't like those didn't convert into big games, but like you went back and looked at the target shares, and you're just like, yeah, I mean, it's
If
the
you have a
same.
hyper talented number one receiver, even if it's a mobile quarterback that is projected to have the fewest pass attempts of all starting NFL quarterbacks in Justin Fields, it doesn't matter. If it's a hyper talented number one like Garrett Wilson, you're drafting him. Just like last year, it's Malik Neighbors, you're drafting him.
Yeah.
Right? That is the exception. That is the one exception to what we're talking about. But if you're talking about running backs, if you're talking about tight ends, if you're talking about depth receivers, then you better be on a team that's going to score.
No, I mean, I can feel you. Yeah, I can feel you with that for sure. I think you know. I, so you certainly, as far as the rookie running backs and redraft, season long redraft, you like R.J. Harvey and Caleb Johnson more than Quinshawn Judkins, or do you consider Caleb Johnson to be on a bad team?
We're just not sure what that team is going to be because we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. I am a little bit below weight on Caleb Johnson. Cody actually convinced me because he thinks that Caleb Johnson's going to have.
It's like if you're having it's like if you're having to take him where he's going, it's like I can't take a guy that or like where's he like last time I looked, I was amazed by how early he was going. So he's going at 45. You're taking him in the 4th round, and you're not even going to be. That's probably your running back too, and you're not even sure if you can start him in week 1.
that player on that offense has such an incredibly high ceiling that's what you're chasing.
Yeah,
The
I think it's
idea,
too.
so Judkins goes what, 3 rounds later?
So Judkins is going. Yes, so Judkins is going in the 7th round.
Right. So that's a better ADP because that actually has upside. Marion Hampton could hit in a big way and it could really burn you. You need to have some exposure. Even if you don't like it, you got to go, let's say, at least 4%, if not more, on Hampton, 5%. Even if you're out on him, you can't risk fading him.
I don't think I want to risk. I love Omari and Hampton.
But Judkins, I think, is
love him.
you could fade him
I
fully.
love
You could
Judkins.
go 0% Judkins and not feel worried at all.
I agree that Omari and Hampton is just a more he's like an Adonis, dude. He's ridiculous. It's like, I agree that I'm scared of Omari and Hampton at the height of his powers, especially if he was able to take over the full workload.
I mean, we're talking about 1 week. Maybe they give
screwed.
Najee the nod, the start for 1 week.
Yeah, but I think it's more of like I don't know if you can do it in managed leagues, Matt. I think you can do it in bet. I think that's something for your best ball portfolio.
Why wouldn't you do it in managed leagues? You can't wait 1 week to start Hampton.
What if week 1 comes around and he gets like a 36% opportunity share and 9 touches?
I guess
you know what I mean?
I just don't see that happening. They drafted him in the first round.
I know, but I just think it's going to, at the very least, I think at the very best he's going to be the 1A for just 1 season. But keep on taking. I'm fine with you taking him at the 102 in Dynasty. I think it had been Dynasty and Superflex. You should be taking Hampton, Hunter, or Cam Ward.
What do you think's going to happen though? Think about it. Close your eyes. How is it going to play out? Training camps happening, the weight room, meetings, preseason games. They're going to see all this Hampton over and over and over again. And you've seen what Najee Harris is. This is a team that is trying to beat the Chiefs, and they're sick of losing. And obviously Harbaugh, hyper competitive. Do you really think that they're going to willingly play an inferior player more than 1 game? That it's so clear that player X is far superior?
And then you got to think, what does it mean that they took him?
It's in the round that they took him
after they did. It isn't like there was just they gave Najee 2 years, and it wasn't like it was just a laughable BS contract either. For a while there, we were all pretty excited about what that meant for him and his future there in Los Angeles. So until the Omari and Hampton thing, I was kind of like, well, I mean, I don't like drafting Najee. But it's like, I got to open my mind to it this year if this is going to be the case, and then that gets completely dusted with the Omari and Hampton thing. But I felt like at the same time, all my Omari and Hampton love kind of got a little bit dusted. Just at least as far as season long managed leagues, if he's going this early, I figured there would have been some kind of drop off. It's not the best spot.
It's a great spot. It's one of the best offensive lines there. They've invested more in the offensive line in the last 3 years than almost any other team. I mean, they've got first rounders on top of first rounders. They have to move tackles to guard, first round tackles to guard. That's how good their offensive line is. And they're only going to coalesce more. Like last year, there was a lot of new pieces, a lot of young players.
I don't think they have they paid him yet.
Who?
Rashawn Slater.
He's still there. I don't know if they've extended him yet.
I mean, he's acting like he's gonna. He might hold out, but regardless, it doesn't matter. I mean, he's gonna play.
He's not holding out. They can't hold out anymore. The collective bargaining agreement makes it impossible to hold out.
Does it? I don't even know.
Yeah, you can't hold out anymore.
Or he's going to hold in.
The way they structure the fines, they always talk about it, and then it's like everyone knows, wink and a nod, these guys not holding out. They hold in. Remember they hold in where remember
they
Jamar
hold
Chase
in. Whatever
came and he
it
was
is,
holding towels for guys and
he's just not going to practice.
yeah, he's not
It's
going to
fine.
practice. It's fine. No, it's going to be on. We're talking about a super prolific offense with Justin Herbert behind one of the best offensive lines. It's good, and not necessarily the best receiving core, so they're going to use the running back in the passing game a lot. Who's the tight end there? Right, there's a lot of running back receptions up for grabs this year, and they're not going to go to Najee Harris. So you could even see them playing them both together.
Well, yeah, and that's what people don't realize about Hampton is he can catch, dude.
He's a great receiver. This is not a player to fade at all. Please don't fade Marion Hampton.
Well, I think you're a lot better off. I'll just say this: you're a lot better off fading him in season-long managed leagues than you are in best ball, and certainly than you are in dynasty. Right? Think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just
I don't know. I just don't think you should fade this guy. Period. I think fading this guy. Period is a mistake.
Who is the tight end for the? Is it Will Dissly? Is it still Will Dissly?
It's Will Dissly. It's Aronde Gadsden. It's very interesting.
And then Tyler Conklin. I forgot that they got Conklin.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah, there's certainly some very interesting pieces there. So auxiliary pieces that could like elevate up the depth chart. Gadsden's one of them. Conklin could come out. I mean, Conklin is a great option in best ball.
He's already better.
Just to lock in some targets on a good offense. Why not?
Well, he'll get more targets than Will Dissly.
Right? I mean,
whenever Dissly came in, they were just like, and I know that he's popped up and he's had some DFS weeks and stuff like that. But do you remember whenever Dissly came? He came from Washington, I believe. Or wait, he went to Seattle. Maybe I'm getting that mixed up. But I think Dissly went to Washington. But coming out of college, I remember like the scouting report that we had on him was just like, all this guy. We were like, don't even worry about him for fantasy. He's a straight up blocker. He's one of these guys that's just going to go in and be a blocker for you. That's definitely right. his bread and butter. He's turned out to be a little bit better, but we know Conklin. He's popped up like he's one of these Punxsutawney Phil type of every now and then he'll pop up and see his own shadow.
Yeah. No, but yeah, you could run your projections and say, looks like Judkins is going to get more touches than Hampton. I guess Judkins is a better value. No. I think it's a perfect dichotomy to look at a guy like Hampton who could hurt you if you don't get proper exposure to him in best ball, whereas a Judkins, there's absolutely no downside to just ignoring him altogether. He is certainly a value, but I think a value trap. But you're like, oh my God, there's 3 rounds of ADP difference. Judkins is a much better value. No, not at all. Not at all. Because, again, what is the risk to fading him? The risk to fading him is nil. The risk to fading Hampton is like that was the league winner this year.
Yeah. Judkins is really good too, though, Matt. But I get what you're saying. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm shocked that his ADP is 4th round. I'm shocked that people are this dismissive of the Najee Harris thing. And to me, when I find something like that to be so shocking, I'm just like, I'm not sure I should be drafting this guy. I'm shocked. The problem is that
fantasy gamers are just better and better and better every year. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. 3 years ago, he would have been a 5th rounder, 6th rounder, maybe. But now, I'm telling you, people are getting better, man, at identifying where the upside is. Now, one of the reasons, or one of the best places that I've found to, mine upside is, again, looking at injury histories and these injury narratives, because injury narratives are pervasive. So I have a video going up on YouTube soon where I identified 10 players that are values because of the injury narrative. And it's not that the injury narrative is a complete fallacy, that it's not true. It is true. McCaffrey is absolutely more injury prone than the average running back. So is Jonathan Taylor. Okay? So is Kenneth Walker. So is Cooper Kupp. But that doesn't mean they're not values because of the injury narrative. So McCaffrey, here's my list. McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman as well. Then I was also J.J. McCarthy, Kirk Cousins, Chris Olave, Pacheco, Kenneth Walker I mentioned, and Cooper Kupp. I think those are the best values based on injury narratives where things could really break their way. And there's no reason not to think that they're going to be severely impacted by past injuries. I think muscles, connective tissue, bones, they all heal. So it's very possible that this is the year that Cooper Kupp's ankle is finally right. That this is the year that we have from Jonathan Taylor where he's finally over those ankle injuries. Just like with Steph Curry. Like, remember Steph Curry, he had these degenerative ankles, and that's why he fell in the NBA draft. And then after a couple of years, he finally got those ankles dialed in, and then he was a MVP. So I see McCaffrey in the second round. I see Jonathan Taylor in the second round. I think one of those two guys is going to win all the money in terms of second-round picks on Fast Draft. By the way, code's Podfather, $50 deposit match, code Podfather on Fast Draft. The Flex 4 game, I don't know why people are drafting anyone other than McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor in the second round. Michael Pittman with the back injury. He was on the injury report 11 games last year. So I think that's an opportunity. McCarthy would have been the first pick in the draft had he come out this year. He's essentially just going to be a delayed rookie with great weapons. Yep. Chris Olave, I mean, he is going to be just absolutely peppered with targets. There's no reason not to think that he's not going to be, the clear winner of that situation in New Orleans. Pacheco, his leg was all atrophied last year after coming back from the broken bone. Of course, he wasn't going to be super elusive, but Kansas City said, this guy's fine. We're not going to draft a running back on day 1 or 2. We talked about Kenneth Walker, talked about Cooper Kupp. Do you agree with those, or do you think any of those guys are stayaways?
No, well, first of all, I think that you left out the biggest one. The biggest one. As far as your injury guys, it's a guy who didn't have his quarterback all last year. He's playing with like a broken wrist and he's going in the third round. It's Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
Third round Tyreek Hill? You don't think that can possibly kill you to a fade?
I think Tyreek Hill's a much better guy to draft in the third round than Mike Evans.
I'd say, gosh.
Right. I know that the broken wrist affected him. There's no doubt it affected him. But Tyreek Hill has a fundamental problem in that Tua is not good and he has low pocket presence and he could easily get knocked out this year. And then there's no one behind him.
Quinn, it's Quinn now, Quinn Ewers, and that's still is. You say what you will about Quinn, and I have a bunch of issues with him, but it's like he's still so much better than Skylar Thompson.
It's fine, but that is a very big problem that Tyreek Hill has. Also, this idea that I'm going to be investing in a field stretcher in his 30s.
He's still really fast.
Okay, there are some fundamental aspects of Tyreek Hill which make me think that he's just properly valued. Like, I agree with you that the injury was a big driver. The wrist injury was a big driver of his lack of production last year. But I think that there's a lot of other sort of structural issues, whether it's his own age and his situation in Miami, that are going to make it difficult for him to deliver.
I get it. But I mean, if we're talking about Christian McCaffrey in round 2, to me, Tyreek Hill in round 3 feels similar to. We're talking superstars that last year were going at the 101 and the 102.
Pearsall's already injured.
Yeah, I saw that. I have some updating to do on the best ball cheat sheet because of that. Because it does become a little worrisome. And there's also I've just been thinking more and more and more about what is your gauge on when Brandon Ayuk is going to get back playing football?
Week 5.
I've been kind of thinking it'd be that's exactly I was pegging for 4 games, so week 5.
Yeah. But he won't be 100%. Because remember, he will have not
So
participated in the offseason.
Is it Pearsall and Juwan Jennings in 2 wide receiver sets?
Yes. But Pearsall's already hurt. And
But he's a first round wide receiver.
I don't feel great about the number 3 or actually the number 4 option. The target, this is what you get ready for this. I think the target totem pole in San Francisco week 1 is going to be as follows: Jennings, Kittle, McCaffrey, Pearsall. Jennings is the clear guy. Yes, he's not fast, but I mean, I love Player Profiler. Obviously, I'm wearing a Player Profiler T-shirt, and I've spent a lot of time and energy and sweat equity building Player Profiler to what it is today. But I think people are getting a little bit carried away with the Juwan Jennings fade. Another receiver, whether he had draft capital or if he had athleticism, he would be going a couple rounds earlier. It just doesn't make sense. And now we have Pearsall getting injured. It's like, this stuff's all going to stack up. Kittle's going to get nicked up at some point. It's all going to stack up. And the guy, the metronome, the guy that you can rely on, the guy that's not going away, the guy that is going to be the target in the red zone is just going to be out there and with the 100% snap share, with the blocking and absorbing coverage from alpha cornerbacks and it just not mattering, is Juwan Jennings. He's really good at football. I can't explain it. I can't explain how it happened that he was just one of a handful of guys all sharing the target share at Tennessee. He barely gets drafted. We were at the Senior Bowl in 2020. I forgot he didn't move the needle at the Senior Bowl. I forgot he was there. And then the guy just decided he was going to be a professional football player. And now every year he gets better and better and better and better. And he's finally in a situation where he is going to get paid. He is in a situation where he's going to go out and get all the money, dude. This team is the defense is in transition. Yeah. Brock Purdy just got the big contract. And it's going to be an aerial assault. And the primary beneficiary is going to be Juwan Jennings.
So you like Juwan Jennings better than all of them, huh? Like even in a vacuum.
What does that mean?
I'm saying so Jennings is ADP right now, and I'm just using Underdog because I don't know how to pull up Fast Draft. I'm going to do that afterwards. So his is 66. What?
We just got to talking about, he's going, what is it? 18 picks after Jamison fucking Williams?
Yeah. But then
what Pearsall, a joke. What a joke. That is a joke. Jamison Williams? Jamison Williams isn't half the receiver that Juwan Jennings is. That is a joke. That is disgusting.
If you were starting an NFL team right now,
spit on the ground.
If you were starting an NFL team right now, you would choose Juwan Jennings over Jamison Williams as your outside receiver.
50 million times out of 50 million. Are you what? I'm Jamison Williams? Please, child, please. He was overdrafted. Didn't Jamison Williams wasn't he the first receiver? Was he drafted over Garrett Wilson?
He was taken at 12th overall, I believe.
Was he drafted before Garrett Wilson?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
It was very close. He was either one pick before or one pick after Garrett Wilson. This is what I'm talking about. This guy's been he had one good year in college. one good year in college, and basically has, decided reluctantly recently, okay, I guess I'll be a professional. Yeah, he was picked like one pick after Garrett Wilson. Like he's barely bought into being a professional. Barely. He is a field stretcher. That is what he is. He is a one-dimensional field stretcher. I am not interested at all in Jamison Williams in his, 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns this year. Don't care. Meanwhile, Jawan Jennings, we're talking about double-digit touchdowns. We're talking about a guy that's he could go out and get 100 catches, 1,200, 1,300 yards, double-digit touchdowns. The ceiling for Jawan Jennings is so much higher as the guy. What? This is very similar. Actually, there's a much better parallel between Jawan Jennings and Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of players that just want it, that are dogs, that are the primary guy where the quarterback, it's a pocket passer, and he's like, the first read is Jawan Jennings. And then we'll see about Kittle. And then we'll see about maybe dumping it off to McCaffrey. And then, maybe there's Pearsall on a drag route. We'll go to him. But if there's a sliver of daylight out there to Jawan Jennings on the boundary, that's where the ball needs to go.
I'm not sure I can agree that I'm not on the Juwan Jennings to the moon like you are.
What am I missing? What am I missing? What did he do? Why is it again? Are you talking about like 5 years ago he wasn't drafted?
No,
or he didn't do well at the combine, just like Keenan Allen didn't do well at the combine and Anquan Bolden didn't do well at the combine. What are we talking about here?
Well, I'm just talking.
He was a 7th round pick. So was Julian Edelman.
It's just in most of the time, if I'm taking guys in the 5th round, I've already talked to you about how much I like Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara, Travion Henderson, these kinds of players.
You can't only draft running backs in a best ball format. More often than not, in any given round, you're drafting a receiver.
Yeah, but why not? No, that's not true. I care a lot about structure, dude.
We have a metric called formation adjusted yards per route run. His yards per route run was 2.45, number 11. If you adjust for formation because of their run heavy formation, because
you told me in Nate List that was stupid. The formation adjusted yards per route run.
Well, in this particular case, it's helpful.
Okay.
Because they run fewer.
They're trying to take our money in that stupid game called Guts, which I actually like. I actually think Guts is actually. Hold on, what's the Guts version where it's called like the Yaki
Milanakis style.
Milanakis is where you go.
Yeah, Milanakis.
You're trying to explain us all the
where you can pass cards left. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, all right, we're playing two card Guts, Milanakis style. Like I told you, I hated it. 15 minutes later, I'm just calling it all out.
3 card Guts, 2 card Guts. Yeah. Pass left. This Milanakis. Formation adjusted yards per route run because of the 49ers' lack of 3 receiver sets and then their propensity for having these formations with the fullback.
Yes, the
2.27 yards per route run formation adjusted is number 7 in the NFL. Yards per team pass attempt, 2.05, top 20. He is a very efficient player. He was finally unlocked and fully appreciated by his team, and it's taken fantasy gamers too long to appreciate him.
Well, I guess I'm glad to hear it. I have him in a couple of my dynasty leagues. Sounds like he's probably.
If you look at his situation and you look at his efficiency last year, and there's no more Debo, and there's really not much of a threat from Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is a player you should not be drafting at all.
I understand that.
So in that context, you could potentially pump him up to the 3rd round. I don't know what is the world where he doesn't outscore Mike Evans.
Matt,
he's like a better Mike Evans. He's like Mike Evans. Mike Evans has less burst now at age 32 than Jawan Jennings does, and Jawan Jennings had 3rd percentile burst when he worked out. His athleticism is now on par with Mike Evans, given Mike Evans' age.
Look, man, I just because of the nature of the way that my tools work, and our number one tool, our number one driver of sales, subscriptions, all this is the Ultimate Draft Cheat Sheet, and it's a structural drafting tool. And so I can't help but think about this thing structurally. And if I just it isn't that, like you said, you're not taking running backs here, you're not taking them here, like whatever. I have to kind of think about it. It's like I don't like the wide receivers there in that area as much as I like the running backs that are going in those 10 picks or so. I think those running backs are supreme values. We've already talked about Kenneth Walker.
Right. Okay. So certainly in a managed league, right?
Yes, managed.
In a managed league where it's my home league and I have the cheat sheet and I got to win my home league. I'm probably going to have an opportunity to draft Juwan Jennings around later than he goes in best ball anyway. So it's not a big deal.
That's
not a
fair
problem.
point.
I'll be able to have Walker and Jennings in the leagues you're talking about. When I look at best ball and I think about the ease of stacking, once you draft Jennings, you could easily stack him with Purdy. There's not big demand. There's not big market demand for Purdy. So to stack him with Pearsall and Kittle is just so straightforward. It's such an easy stack to execute on. It's just how can you not be at least double weight? I think 20% Jennings should be your target in all formats. I think the only format where I wouldn't be up to 20% Jennings is fast draft, because in round 6 there are just so many great options in round 6, in particular, like running backs, a Travion Henderson, an RJ Harvey, there's a Caleb Johnson. There's so many great options. There's a Chris Olave. There's a Brian Robinson. There are so many great options in round 6 that it's difficult to get to that percentage in your portfolio of Jennings, particularly because, and you shouldn't anyway, because Jennings is already low owned. He's only 13.4% owned at all. So as long as you just have some Jennings, you get leverage on the field, because there's going to be a lot of people who don't have any Jennings.
I can't believe we're talking about Chris Olave versus Juwan Jennings. What kind of crazy town are we living in?
Chris Olave is also an incredible play. One guy is on the 49ers. The other guy is on the Saints. This is the theme of this show, is to just drill into this idea that one guy can get 1,800 air yards one year and be a super hyper talented first round guy that you love, and he's undervalued because of an injury narrative and the fact that he's on a bad team, and Chris Olave, and he's a great value. Jennings is also an equally great value, not because he's a first round talent, but because the situation is just so pure. Whereas with Olave, you're taking advantage of, you're getting value because of the injury narrative. And as a player in a vacuum, he's a guy you want. He's a guy with big boom week upside because he's Olave and he's explosive and he's an incredible deep play, ball squeezer.
But he's also like Tua, where it's like he gets one concussion and you're going to get the outcry from the whole NFL media to make that guy retire.
It's an upside play. He is a best ball receiver. That's what Chris Olave is. I want him in all formats, but that's what he is. You're chasing the upside. But there is upside with Jennings that is not discussed. That is the point.
Well, it's been discussed now.
It's been discussed like it's never been discussed before, and it never will be discussed like this ever again. My God. I mean, Olave is going to benefit from having Shuck, by the way, and so will Shaheed. I think they're both great picks.
I haven't really, it was nice seeing Shaheed out there seeing him out there. He's going right there around. I'm not sure on fast draft again, but
no, he's not going in flex 4. He's not going, but we are going to be rolling out, just because this is like a business podcast. The one we got to talk some business. There is a traditional best ball contest being rolled out on Fast Draft in the month of June. It's going to be called the Rabbit, 15 rounds. And on that format, you'll be able to draft the hell all, Olave, Shaheed, stack them with Shuck, go win.
How about this stuff about they're saying the Spencer Rattler, if they had, clearly ahead of Shuck through the first part of OTAs?
Of course he is, because
I
he's the
think that's
veteran.
the way
He knows the
it's just
plays. He's
That's
comfortable.
how it works, right?
That's how it
Yeah.
works. That's how it works. I wouldn't read much into that. Do you think that there's any chance that Devin Neal can carve out a significant role next to Kamara?
Devin Neal's really good, man. I think it all has to do with our guy Kendre Miller. Are you completely out on Kendre?
Yes.
Just kind of.
Yes.
I'm getting to be where I probably am too. But it has been injuries for him. And you were talking earlier about the Cooper Cups and all the
okay, there's a difference. Okay,
there's
some guys that get injured because they don't hydrate and they're always having strained hamstrings just because they don't take proper care of their body. That's different than Cooper Kupp, who takes immaculate care of his body. He just happens to have these bad luck injury situations, and he has these tightrope procedures that can set your career back. It's not his fault. Like, we're talking about Kenneth Walker. Right, these are guys that, if anything, sometimes they get injured because they care too much. Right, that's not Kendre Miller. Please,
it's not that, right. You're saying Cooper Kupp is different than like a Devontae Parker that would bring a 6-pack of Yoo-hoos into the locker room after practice.
Every year, Devontae Parker had a strained hamstring. Just like you don't want to take that bet. I can tell you that right now. Betting on a Kendre Miller strained hamstring, you don't want it. You don't want that. You don't want that action.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
No.
We could bet $20 on me, $20 versus your mortgage payment. I still wouldn't do it.
No, he's going to strain a hamstring. We know that. Yeah. So Devin Neal, I love absolutely. By the way, we can't close the show out until we talk about C.J. Stroud, because C.J. Stroud skipping OTAs.
He's not either.
Well, he's not throwing.
He threw a little bit on the first day, but he didn't throw on the second day.
Why?
Don't know.
He's not injured, they said.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I saw.
Do you remember what we talked about? Remember Young Miami? Remember we called this, dude. We called, be careful with C.J. Stroud because of this Young Miami situation. He's on a private plane and he's not focused on football. Next thing we know, he's deciding to big-time his teammates and not throw for no reason whatsoever. His focus is not on football.
What's his focus on?
His focus is on
podcast with Micah Parsons.
His focus is on podcasting. He wants to be a celebrity. And that's just, again, Kenneth Walker is not interested in becoming a celebrity. Kenneth Walker wants to be the best football player. There's a difference.
Yeah, I
especially there's a very particular type of format where this matters. In Superflex and 2QB Dynasty leagues, CJ Stroud goes very early. Very early. We're talking sometimes as early as third round?
Superflex, like Dynasty startups, he's going in Superflex Dynasty startups, you mean?
Yeah. Late second, third?
I would think, I don't have our rankings. I'm sure it's second round.
It's very early.
Yeah.
Very early. And in those types of situations, I just say, you know what? Let's not. Let's make sure if we're going to draft this guy for his career that he wants to have a career as an NFL football player, that we're sure about it. I'm sure about it with Brock Purdy. So that's the direction I'm going. I'm going to go in the direction of a Brock Purdy. I'll even go for value on more of like a Bryce Young later. Or, I'll try to piece together the team. Or if he's now at a point where, there's uncertainty around his career trajectory, just like, Michael Penix. Well, Michael Penix, actually, I think these are similar players, but Michael Penix, I haven't heard anything in terms of him being distracted. He's apparently very focused and committed. So all else equal, I'll just take Penix. Goes a little bit later. Easy.
A lot later.
easy arbitrage. To me, it's easy. There's not a big difference. One guy has Drake London, the other guy has Nico Collins. These are very similar situations, team situations, very similar talent profiles. So just go Penix.
Similar easy conferences for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like if I'm in the second, third round of a Dynasty Superflex 2 QB league, I am typically not going quarterback. I'll get my quarterback in round 1, or I'll wait and I'll go with Purdy as my number 1 quarterback. But I like to stay away from round 2, 3, 4. I like to stay away from quarterback in Dynasty Superflex leagues, in those startups, just because there's always you're forced to sort of, you're not getting the premium best players, the best quarterbacks, that are set it and forget it quarterbacks. You're typically having to compromise and take the next tier, and these guys always have some flaws you have to deal with. And I'm like, why am I drafting a flawed player in the second round? This feels ridiculous.
Well, because
I can draft a receiver or a running back that is at the peak of his powers with no flaws. But because it's super flex in 2 QB leagues, you talk yourself into taking flawed quarterbacks in these early rounds, and it's like there's no reason to do that. All the smoke around CJ Stroud, don't do it.
It's just because you can't be QB poor in Superflex. I refuse to ever be QB poor again. It's happened to me before, and I'm just like, I'm in limbo right now. This is hell. I just, I could. But
let me ask you a question: if you have Purdy as your QB1, if you have Penix and Purdy, okay, as your QB1 and QB2, are you QB poor at that point?
No, but I think those are guys you're going to have to take in round 3 and 4. I think so. You're gonna have to take now with Purdy. Now that he's been signed, where does Player Profile have him in their rankings? I mean, we have him right there around 40. Do you guys have him a lot later than that? Let me just see. Player Profiler has Purdy 35 in Superflex, so that's the three or 4. Penix at 37, 3 or 4. That's where you take him.
Yeah, 4th round. I think you could get. We're a little higher on them than where they're going to go. I think you can get them around later.
Okay.
What about Baker Mayfield? What about Dak Prescott? These are all guys that I'm very comfortable with. JJ McCarthy. What if I told you my quarterbacks were Purdy and McCarthy and Bryce Young?
You're not
no. You know what? You know what we'll do? Purdy, McCarthy, Justin Fields. Is that good enough for you?
No.
No?
Oh, Purdy, McCarthy, Fields?
Yeah, Purdy, McCarthy, Fields. Is that good enough for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the type of quarterback core I would go with. And that would allow me to have a Justin Jefferson. That would allow me to have a Bijan Robinson. If I'm drafting late in a startup, I can start with Justin Jefferson. I can start with Malik Neighbors, and then I can come right back and get a Bijan or a Gibbs. Feel really good about it, and then I can, and with the next pick, I can get at least one quarterback, or that's my preferred structure. So to have a locked in alpha, young alpha wide receiver 1, a locked in young alpha running back 1. And then solve for the quarterback position in those later rounds.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I said, if you have a plan, as long as you know you're not going to be QB poor, and you can realize that as long as you don't feel like it's a reach for a Penix there at the end of the Penix, Purdy, this kind of player there, into the third, beginning of the fourth, it'll feel like somebody on the thing, Jamie Prog saying he just went 408. So going early fourth is a little bit of a reach. As long as you're comfortable doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, Purdy and Penix both, and Jamie Parag in the chat. And by the way, if you like this, if you like what we're talking about, if you like our topics and the content, like the show. Wherever you're listening to it, like it, share it, tell friends about it, especially the podcast. Share it with friends. and subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to the Rosterwatch and the PlayerProfiler YouTube channels. Penix 408 and then Purdy 410 in a recent startup by Jamie Parag in the chat.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. That would have been me. That would have been me. I would have done a deal. I would have traded back I would have traded my third rounder, traded back, and those would have been my two quarterbacks, and then that would be ideal. That would be absolutely perfect.
Yeah,
so,
I like it.
More questions for you. You ready for this?
Sure.
Final question. How hard do you think the Chiefs roar back this year? I think they're going to roar back in a big way. Do you think Tony Gonzalez at age 36 put up 930 yards and 8 touchdowns? When I think about Travis Kelce, I think he has one big season left, one final job. I think that Rashee Rice is, one of the all-purpose stud receivers in the league. One of the young alphas that I want. In his dynasty startup. So this is who I'm targeting. A guy like that in all formats. And think about a guy I'm targeting in all formats, Rashee Rice. Right. So I think that the Chiefs offense is going to have to crank up the volume to carry Rice and Kelce to be big winners this year, to really pay off at their ADPs. And if they both pay off, even if Mahomes again has this sort of reversion, really, Mahomes reverts back to what he used to be, a truly prolific passer, not a game manager. Worthy's going to be tough. Worthy's tough to stomach right now. I like this offense to rebound big time this year. I think this is going to be a very competitive conference. I think their defense is certainly can't possibly be as good. They can't possibly be in so many good situations. When I look at their schedule is a gauntlet, which is what you want. You want them to have to throw the ball to be competitive. I love Kelce at his ADP. I love Rice just in a vacuum, as you say. But given that, where's Worthy fit into this?
Well, first of all, we have to consider the fact, and look, I'm not going to, you guys can go look into this as far as the allegations that came out against Xavier Worthy over the spring. Not sure what's going to come of it. There's a situation out there regarding Xavier Worthy that that may or may not come to fruition, and that whether or not the legal stuff continues with it could be something that the NFL looks into as far as suspensions and stuff. I'm not a legal mind, and I'm not going to talk about that. But there is that out there. There is also the fact that Xavier Worthy, whenever he went off to end the season, I mean, we know that was without Rashee Rice. We know that Rashee Rice last year to start the season was basically in a league of his own, along with Jamar Chase, as far as, his just in general PPR fantasy points per game output. He was at like 22 fantasy points per game. He only played 3 games, but him and Jamar Chase, had he would have continued that pace, they would have lapped the field. And you know how far ahead of everybody else Jamar Chase was, right? He cleared the wide receiver 2 among qualifiers by like 5 fantasy points in PPR, and Rashee Rice was right up there with him. So, look, I think you gotta have some Rashee Rice. I'm with you. I like the Chiefs. I think that I think especially in the passing game, I'm a little bit unsure about Isaiah Pacheco more so than you are. I know that they only drafted Brashard Smith, but they did bring in Elijah Mitchell. Kareem Hunt is still kicking around on that team. It looks like he'll probably make the team. And he did play over Isaiah Pacheco.
He should not make the team. I think that would just be wrong. They should keep Carson Steele, Brashard Smith, Elijah Mitchell, and Pacheco. There's no room. There's no reason. There's nothing. You're not gaining anything. He doesn't offer anything. These other guys don't offer, and he has no long-term value to the franchise. Why? Why do they have him on the roster? Why?
He's technically still on the roster,
I just don't get it.
Yeah. And he did play over Pacheco last year to end the season. And I know Pacheco
Of
was
course he
banged
did.
up.
Again, Pacheco hit one of his legs was half the size of the other leg.
He also runs. He also runs like a chicken without his head cut off. There's a risk of tearing one of his legs off at any point, man. Too. So I just think that I agree with you as far as the passing game. I think all these guys are. I think that all these guys are going to be good for Mahomes. I think that Kelsey's one of the best. Am I crazy to think that Kelsey's just an insane value?
He's
Because he's
absolutely
going right.
insane. Again,
He's
at
going
age 36, Tony Gonzalez had 930 yards and like 7 touchdowns. It's so easy where you can. I mean, I was talking to Andrew Cooper, who he really does a lot of work on tight ends. And if you're going to do a 2 tight end build in best ball, Kelsey and Njoku is the way to go. That is the way to go.
Or Kelsey Hunter Henry.
Or
is one that
Kelsey Hunter Henry is exactly what he said. Okay.
Did
you
he?
You could even go as far as Kelsey Fryermuth, but that's a little bit of a stretch.
Okay.
But anyway, we're on the same page with this. Kelsey is finally I can draft him. It took this long, and finally I can draft all the Kelsey. I've been waiting for this moment. I'm finally here. Our league mates are letting us have all the Rashee Rice, even though he was just so epic last year. And the situation is getting better. Again, that was a moment in time where they were just up 20 against all these bad teams, or the games just shook out to be low scoring, grind them out. Hey, we're up 9 in the fourth quarter and we're just going to run the ball. Where, and by the way, the points per game on Rashee Rice is super deceptive because he only had a 6.8% snap share before he got hurt in week 4. His fantasy output was 17.3, 18.5, and then 29.1 fantasy points for those first 3 weeks. This is a player you need to be, heavily exposed to. And then the stacking with Mahomes is very easy. It's never been this easy. Mahomes has always been overdrafted until this year. And again, this is just playing fantasy as if last year is going to play out the same. And we know it won't because now we have the schedule, Alex. I'm looking at Chargers, Eagles, Ravens, a vastly improved Jaguars team, Lions, vastly improved Raiders team, Commanders, Bills, Broncos, Colts, Cowboys, Texans, Chargers. This is the schedule. This is a shootout schedule. There's no way they're going to get away with just grinding out these games. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, they gave them the games that are the big. So the AFC West this year gets the AFC South and the NFC East. And you look at the games that they gave the Chiefs for the extra 3 games, right? They gave them the Lions on Sunday Night Football. They gave them the Ravens, and they gave them the Bills. So basically, they gave them. They want the Chiefs. They want Mahomes to play in all the big time games. The Chiefs next year, they're playing in at least 8 primetime / international / holiday games. They're going to be playing on the island games.
You think those games are going to be 17-13?
Dude, is that what the NFL really wants?
No, that's not going to happen, man. Last year was last year with the Chiefs. Yeah. Is it? I just, it's so easy in best ball to have Mahomes and Purdy be your top 2 quarterbacks in your portfolio. It's so easy to stack these 2 teams, the 49ers and the Chiefs. There's no resistance. There's no resistance to just piling into these 2 teams. It's crazy to me.
It's a crazy world that we live in, Matt.
I don't think Rice is going to be suspended this year, is he?
No.
So
no.
Again, this is just a narrative.
Like I said, I'm not
it's
a
just
lawyer.
A pervasive narrative.
There's all these lawyer types on X that do these 20 tweet threads, and they're just like, I just scroll to the bottom. They're like, in short, it's not going to happen for Rashee Rice this year. He's not going to be suspended. So quit baking it into his ADP.
Great show today, buddy.
Great show, brother.
Hanging out with you on a Saturday to talk football, it doesn't feel like work. It's just I'm hanging out with my buddy on a Saturday. I really appreciate it, man.
Do you know what feels like work? Getting me walking right back out into this sun to go put in these plants on this stupid berm that I'm building to divert the water from my front door. That feels like work.
To you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.